The Super Nintendo, Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Wii. Those are just a few of the successes from Nintendo. But despite all of the good, there have been some massive failures from the company through the years. Here are 10 fails Nintendo wants to sweep under the rug and wish you never knew about. Before you watch, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new content. The Sony PlayStation is born. In today's video game market, Nintendo faces competition from two other huge home console companies, Sony and Microsoft. Both companies offer a lot of competition, but it didn't always have to be that way. After the success of the Super Nintendo, the company was looking to develop their next big console and improve on the graphical limitations the Super Nintendo offered. This is when Nintendo decided to team up with Sony to develop the Nintendo 64. While both companies made great strides, Nintendo refused to consider the disc technology that Sony was so adamant about. Nintendo stuck to cartridges, Sony went their separate way, and thus the PlayStation was born. Essentially, Nintendo created one of their biggest competitors by refusing to use disc technology. While cartridges worked great for the N64, the PlayStation was able to pack more content into games, use real video footage, and expand their game library to a lot of third-party companies who could publish titles easier and faster on the discs. Nintendo finally understood the benefits of using discs and turned to the technology for the release of the Nintendo GameCube in 2001. It was too little too late as Sony's popularity grew and Nintendo was left with great competition rather than an ally. My Nintendo Rewards. For many years, proud and dedicated Nintendo players found themselves to be members of Club Nintendo. It was more than just a place to tout your massive collection of games. You were actually rewarded with real items and products. Using points earned from purchases and achievements, Club Nintendo featured posters, wallets, and t-shirts gamers could have sent right to their homes. Then, in 2016, Nintendo did the unthinkable by replacing Club Nintendo with a new club known as My Nintendo Rewards. The only problem? There are no actual rewards that players can get. Earning points with My Nintendo Rewards now just feels like a huge waste of time. Instead of actual products or games, players can receive coupons for percentages off games and digital downloads of random desktop wallpapers. It all feels very uninspired and offers no true goals for players to earn towards. The Club Nintendo system was working great, and there was really no good reason for Nintendo to throw it all out the window. My Nintendo Rewards still has time to improve, but after a year of garbage offerings, don't expect too many players to shell out any extra money just to earn more rewards. Adding some cool Nintendo products or Switch downloads will make a huge difference with this system. Selling Rare. Nintendo has worked with several different video game development companies through the years, but one of the most prominent was Rare. Rare really helped build up the Nintendo brand in huge ways. On the Super Nintendo, Rare helped release games like Donkey Kong Country, Killer Instinct, and the whole Battletoads series. Once the Nintendo 64 was released, their gaming library only improved with the Banjo-Kazooie franchise, more Donkey Kong games, Perfect Dark, and GoldenEye 007. With a huge library of hits like this, it was extremely disappointing when Nintendo parted ways with the company in 2002. Rare was purchased by Microsoft and the company went on to make all kinds of games. This included a Perfect Dark sequel and the Viva Pinata collection of games. Nintendo could have really used the company for the launch of the Wii, as Rare spent years developing games for the Xbox Kinect, including Kinect Sports and Kinect Sports Season 2. The move resulted in a cancelled Donkey Kong game and the potential for more hits like GoldenEye. The GameCube also lost several titles in development as their production moved over to the Xbox and Xbox 360. Players now have the chance to relive some of Rare's big highlights through the years thanks to the Xbox One release of Rare Replay. Philips CDI games. In the early 1990s, the electronics company Philips decided to release their own gaming console entitled the CDI. The console relied on CDs for gameplay and was pretty obscure at the time. Oddly enough, someone at Philips was able to convince Nintendo to loan them both the licenses for Zelda and Mario for the development of games. This shocking move would be completely unheard of in today's gaming landscape. Nevertheless, it happened with Philips, and the results were horrid. One of the Zelda games released for the console was entitled Link: The Faces of Evil. It was a side-scrolling adventure with poor graphics, a weak story, and cutscenes which appear like they were created in MS Paint. The other two, Zelda Wand of Gamelon and Zelda's Adventure, are equally terrible. Nintendo has officially announced that the games are not a part of the official canon, which is a good thing because they feel like fan-made titles. Things were even worse for the release of the Philips Super Mario game titled Mario Hotel. Unlike other games where Mario would defeat enemies and try to take on Bowser, the goal of this game was to shut all of the doors in the hotel. Yes, you heard that correctly. Mario's big puzzle adventure includes shutting doors. Not surprisingly, it's considered the worst Mario game ever created and an embarrassment to the franchise. Virtual Boy. The key to having successful virtual reality is to make it feel as real and virtual as possible. Today's VR headsets feature 360-degree turns, incredible HD graphics, and a lot of ways to interact with various games and apps. This was not the case for Nintendo's Virtual Boy. Released way before its time, the Virtual Boy came out in 1995 and felt like a failure as soon as it was released. Instead of utilizing NES or SNES graphics, the gaming device used a background with red lines to help showcase the 3D properties of the game. This added a lot of limitations and really made games lack in the content department. While the Game Boy was a massive success, the Virtual Boy was a failure in every way. Not only were the controllers uninspired, but the headset and controller were challenging to use. Nintendo threw a lot into the system, including Mario games and third-party titles, but it just couldn't catch on. Anyone who did actually purchase the system complained of headaches, dizziness, and other symptoms that occurred while using the device. Yikes. The console quietly disappeared, and Nintendo improved upon their 3D graphics with the release of the 3DS. The Wii U launch. Oh, the poor Wii U. The console felt like it never stood a chance. Despite some good games like Super Smash Bros. And Mario Party 10, the console felt doomed before it even hit store shelves. One of the main reasons for this was because of the poor marketing the console received. The Wii U name alone was confusing because fans weren't sure if it was an add-on to the Wii or a completely new system. Then, a number of ads catered towards gimmicky features for young children rather than actual gaming older players crave. Then there's the controller, the large and bulky tablet controller. Sure, it was fun to play without needing a TV, but the controller presented all types of problems. When using multiplayer, only one player could use the large tablet device. Other players were forced to use Wii remotes, GameCube controllers, and whatever other compatible accessories you could get your hands on. Thankfully, Nintendo made up for this failure with the release of the Switch. The Switch is what the Wii U wishes it could have been. In many years, players will look back on the Wii U with a chuckle as one of the worst home consoles Nintendo ever produced. Wii GIMMICK controllers. When the Wii was first released, players could not get enough of the motion movements featured in games like Wii Sports. Then, Mario Kart Wii was released, and the Wii remote could actually be inserted inside of a fake steering wheel. While the gimmick was fun, it was only the beginning for a collection of pointless controller add-ons players bought in droves. What seemed fun at first turned out to be a huge waste of plastic. The Wii remote could be inserted inside a fake basketball, as part of a fishing pole, and even a huge lightsaber for a Star Wars game. It turns out most of these controller extensions were bulky, blocked buttons, and became a huge waste of time. Aside from official Nintendo releases, there were also a number of third-party add-ons including instruments, bowling balls, and wings. Yup, a pair of wings you would flap for the Wii Fit Plus minigame. It was enough spending your hard-earned money on these interactive games. Shelling out extra for the accessories just seemed like a huge waste. Thankfully, the Switch controllers have not introduced any of these crazy accessories yet. They're sticking to basic color palettes for the time being. Nintendo 64DD. For its time, there was nothing wrong with the Nintendo 64 console. The 3D graphics were a huge improvement over the Super Nintendo. The console had several hits outside of Mario games like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and GoldenEye 007. Instead of releasing a sequel to Super Mario 64 or giving Luigi his own game, the company decided to focus on expanding the console with the Nintendo 64DD. Didn't Nintendo learn anything from Sega's failed 32X? The expansion of the console would have featured a disk drive that was connected to the bottom of the N64 and used storage disks similar to zip drives. After years of potential development and hype, the Nintendo 64 DD was never released in the United States. It was released in Japan, but was a huge failure for the company. Very few games were developed for the expansion, and fans didn't care for purchasing the add-on when the original console was perfectly fine. The only Mario games released for the expansion were Mario Art games, which actually utilized a computer mouse rather than the N64 controller. They would have been better off with just doing PC releases. Nintendo cut their losses, abandoned the 64DD, and decided to focus on the GameCube as a result. The Power Glove. When the original NES console was released, there was nothing cooler than plugging in the flash gun and shooting away at ducks, clay discs, or using it for other games. Nintendo then tried to release an accessory even cooler than the gun, simply known as the Power Glove. Instead of holding the basic Nintendo controller, the Power Glove was worn by players over their hand and featured all kinds of buttons and inputs that expanded well beyond the typical A and B buttons. Players could slow down games, move their wrists like motion controls, and program all types of different settings. Of course, this is one of those gadgets that just looks cooler than it actually is. Not only was the Power Glove only released for right-handed players, but it was glitchy, pointless, and didn't even work with every game. Don't let the hype from the video game film The Wizard fool you. The Power Glove is a disappointment in every way. Not only was it a little too bulky for children to play with, but it cost a whopping $75 when it was first released. That money could have gone to a lot more Nintendo cartridge purchases. Wii Online Play. When originally released in 2006, the Wii had everything going for it. There were motion controls, a good library of games, and a lot of hype surrounding the release of multiple Mario and Zelda games. The console had the potential to overtake Microsoft and Sony as the leader in gaming, but one thing hindered that from happening: poor online play. It's like Nintendo was living in the past and didn't care about online gaming at all. While franchises like Call of Duty were getting millions of players on other consoles, it felt like playing a poor imitation on the Wii due to their terrible online services. For games you could play online, it was hard to find friends, the games often lagged, and connection problems occurred often. This often made the Wii feel outdated and sent people to the better performing Xbox 360 and PS3 to get their online gaming fix. If the online gaming was improved, the Wii would have felt less like a novelty console and could have expanded to include a lot more third-party and online titles. Even if you were able to play some games online, that all ended in 2014 when Nintendo shut off the Wii servers and players could no longer connect for online games like Mario Kart Wii. Wow. Well, there you have it. What do you think the biggest failure was? Do you think Nintendo's turned things around with the Switch? Are there any fails we missed? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to The Gamer on YouTube so you can stay up to date with all of our awesome videos. Thanks for watching.